A very good evening to you. And welcome to the first Sweet and Swing of 2025. So it's not too late to say it now. A very happy new year. What have we got? How about a bit of the Duke? Some Harry Parr Davies. Don Redman, he was a character. And lots of other goodies, so let's begin. Begin the Begin, of course. Given to us there by the BBC Big Band on a box set I discovered. So yes, a very happy new year to you all. I hope we find you well as we head into 2025, despite the slightly inclement weather. Well, inclement if you don't like cold weather. I mean, it's beautiful, been some beautiful blue skies and crisp days and wonderful views and snowy mountaintops, but if you're trying to get about and the path is icy or the road's blocked or the road is icy or black ice or all these other problems that cold weather can bring, particularly if you live on an island, as we do, where, yes, it's windy and it's wet a lot of the time, but it's not often, is it, really icy and snowy. Snow we can, go a year or two without seeing any, I suppose, can't we? And even ice and frosty days don't seem to be as prevalent as they were, say, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Maybe I'm just looking through rose-tinted glasses, as they say. But it seems to me it's somewhat warmer, milder, wetter and windier than it was when I was just a nipper, as they say. I don't know. You'd have to look at the records to be exact, but and your memory can play tricks, I know. But we just don't seem to get those frosty days as often. So it always comes as a shock to the system when they arrive. I mean, you should expect them really in January, I suppose, in February, shouldn't you? But you can go so many years where it's just, we get very used to force 8, force 9, force 10, force 11, lots of wind, lots of rain, and not so much of the cold stuff. But there we are. I hope you're surviving, whatever it is. We'll do our best to keep spirits high here on Sweet and Swing. And I was doing a bit more clearing, and that eventually old Music Man Towers, the old maestro's bass, for many years until he moved on to the Bandstand in the Sky a few years back. It's still not fully cleared, but now I think we're on the homeward stretch of it actually finding a new owner and hopefully bringing joys to someone else. Possibly not so musical. I don't know. Either way, we're going to have to clear out the rest of it. And I did discover more, were it possible, more music lurking in the recesses as we carried on the rather slow and languorous clearance project, including that little collection of 4 set volumes, 1, 2, 3 and 4, count them, of the BBC Big Band, bringing you the age of swing. So I think we can dip in and out of that one over the next few months. And indeed, plenty more goodies I mentioned at the top of the show. Harry Parr-Davies, Duke Ellington, some great stuff from him, Fats Waller, some Count Basie, and Don Redman as well. We'll have a bit of Don Redman this evening. However, on with the music. What about a little bit of a true character? Lil Armstrong. It's murder.
Now all you gals come gather round, stop raving about your men. And let me tell you how sweet mine is, though he commits a sin. 'Cause when my baby makes love to me, it's murder. Now when he turtle doves me, that's murder. Now when he feels temperamental, I just let him have his way. I can only see him twice a week, he's a member of the PWA. Now when my baby caresses me, it's murder. But if he ever dispossesses me, I will commit murder. Now if I tell him that he's not mine, he turns into Frankenstein, makes shivers run up and down my spine. That's murder. When he shakes that thing, that's murder.
James P. Johnson there with a rather appropriately entitled Snowy Morning Blues. Had a few of those of late, haven't we? One way or another. And before that, It's Murder, which you can be on the roads if you've got a snowy morning. Lil Armstrong, or Lil Harden as she was, or Lil Harden Armstrong you sometimes see with a double-barrelled listed as a real character. She, and no fool at all, a very smart woman and a great composer, jazz pianist, arranger, singer, band leader, and second wife of course, Louis Armstrong, with whom she collaborated on many recordings in the 1920s. Came from a very poor background. Her mother had been a slave, a grandmother, I beg your pardon, was a slave, which you don't like to think about, being that close, isn't it? I don't know, it's just so distasteful. You have to remember it, but you don't like to think about it, do you? But Lil went on to great things in many ways, including, by the way, studying at the New York College of Music, where she got a postgraduate diploma, according to Mr. Wiki. But she met up with King Oliver, who recognised her talents, and she was playing with King Oliver when Louis Armstrong was there, and that's how she was singing. She met Louis and saw the talent in Louis in many ways. And King Oliver's band was having great success at Dreamland, the club, I think, then, was that in Washington? I can't remember now where it was. And Armstrong had joined as a second cornetist, just as he was beginning to make a name for himself, but he regarded King Oliver as his mentor, so he was playing with his absolute star. Harden said she was rather unimpressed originally with Louis Armstrong, remembering later on that she was very disgusted. He must have been quite a character. Very disgusted by Louis, who arrived in Chicago wearing clothes and a hairstyle that she deemed to be too country for Chicago. Chicago, that's where we were. But she worked hard, apparently, to take the country out of him. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. And a romance developed, to the surprise of other band members, some of whom had been trying to woo Lil, who was a good looker, it has to be said, with no great success. Yeah, she had an eye for the right man. And, yes, she would visit cabarets after hour spots, after their job at Lincoln Gardens, and the relationship blossomed somewhat. And she taught him how to dress more fashionably. Apparently, got rid of his various sort of accoutrements she didn't like and began to foster his career, updating his appearance, getting him to learn classical music with the help of a German teacher in Chicago, and encouraging him to basically branch out on his own. He was quite happy, I think, playing along with King Oliver. Who wouldn't be? You're playing with your absolute idol. But she was saying, no, you can go on and do it yourself. Don't play second fiddle all the time, or second cornet. You can be principal cornet. And persuaded him to manage his own money and assert himself on the bandstand during recording sessions. Eventually, of course, convincing him to leave King Oliver and go out on his own. Excellent idea. Told you she was no fool. Yes, we'll go back to Lil Armstrong, I think, at some stage in the future. It's a great character, good story to tell there, I feel. Anyway, back to the music, and also back to a very nice little letter from Father Sean. Lovely to hear from you, Father Sean. A very happy New Year to you. And he dropped me a lovely little line just at the beginning of the New Year, saying, I remember when our family went to the Alabama for a holiday in August 1952. You've been talking about post-war rationing on Sweet and Swing. Yes, I think we were, weren't we? My parents had to get ration books for certain things while there. That was my first visit, 1952. I was but a twinkle. I wasn't even a twinkle in the eye, Father Sean. I don't think I'd got that far. But my dad went there on a number of times, he goes on, in the 1930s, and says he loved it. One year he and his pal went to Blackpool instead. He told me the best part of the holiday was a day trip to Douglas. It was in its peak then, Father Sean. I don't know whether he would have felt the same if he'd visited today. I don't know. It's still there. Whether it's quite as attractive as it might have been in the 1930s and when it was in the heyday of the holiday era, I don't know. Some time ago, Father Sean goes on, you played We'll Meet Again, sung by Isabel Buchanan. Yeah, that was very lovely. We'll play some more of Isabel, I think. Right now, he says, I'm listening to Leroy Anderson's Plink, Plank, Plonk, the second time I've heard it on radio this week. I've heard Leroy on radio several times over the festive period, really. Sleigh Ride, of course. I've always been a big fan of Leroy Anderson's music. He was a great composer and an amazing character. 9 languages he could speak, apparently. A great composer of light music and a wonderful arranger, as his Irish Suite shows. Well, if that's not a cue to play the Irish Suite, or at least the first section or so of it, I don't know what is, Father Sean. Ah, very nice. Firmly into the sweet category of sweet and swing. The first section, at least, of the Irish Suite by Leroy Anderson, as mentioned in that lovely little letter from Father Sean. And very happy New Year to you. I hope you're keeping well, Father Sean, and all sweet and swing listeners, wherever you may be. And as usual, we'll say wherever you might be, why don't you let us know where you are, particularly if you're listening in far-flung climes. So, out in the back of beyond somewhere exotic, somewhere warm, somewhere very cold, somewhere far, far away, or all of the above. It would be lovely to hear from you. Join the Far Away Club. Let us know where you're listening, how you're listening. Well, you're listening on the web, unless you're getting a very, very good AM signal from somewhere. Anyway, be nice to hear from you. Another one I found whilst clearing out the old HQ was, a great collection of Duke Ellington. It's from the Giants of Jazz series, which used to do some great stuff. And this is Duke Ellington presents the soloists of his orchestra from the late 40s through to the 50s. And here's a great Ellington tune you don't often hear that often. At least I don't think you do. Not as often as some of them anyway. I love it though. East St. Louis, toodaloo. Good tune, I must admit. East St. Louis, well, Duke Ellington tune, what do you expect, I suppose? They're all good. Is there a duffer? Maybe, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. East St. Louis Toodaloo definitely not being one. Chicago, February 7th and 8th, 1956 that was. Positively modern for Sweet and Swing. But still, 70 years ago? No, don't think about it. That can't be right, can it? 50 years is 2006. Almost. Yes, we won't dwell on that in any case. In case you start feeling as old as I suddenly start feeling. Duke Ellington and his orchestra with, well, there's so many there, weren't there? Cat Anderson, Willie Cook, Clark Terry, Ray Nance. On trumpets there, Bill Woodman, Quentin Jackson, John Sanders on trombone, Jimmy Hamilton's around, Rochelle Prokop on alto sax, Johnny Hodges, of course, on alto, Paul Gonsalves, can't even say it today, Gonsalves on tenor saxon, Harry Carney at the bass, with, of course, the rhythm section, Duke Ellington at the keyboards, Jimmy Wood bass, Sam Woodyard drums. Now, Don Redman, I mentioned him earlier on as well. The Redman family, of course. Don was uncle to Dewey Redman. If you're a modern jazz fan like me, Dewey Redman, a major figure in modern jazz, and indeed his son, so great uncle to Joshua Redman. Dewey no longer with us, but Joshua most certainly is, and playing right up there at the cutting edge of modern jazz, and often featuring in the top tens of critics' polls come the end of the year. Not this year, I notice, in Jazzwise, but frequently he does, and still playing at the very top of his game, as Don Redman did for so many years. Great character, he as well. How about this one? Swinging with the Fat Man.
loves me like no one can. Something about you I can't resist. When you kiss me, Daddy, I stay kissed. Oh, Daddy, squeeze me and squeeze me again. Oh, Papa, don't stop till I tell you when. Now, Daddy, squeeze me, kiss me some more. Just like you did before. Your Papa Cupid is standing close by. Oh, Daddy, don't let your sweet baby cry. Just pick me up on your knee. I just get so you know, oh, when you squeeze me. Yes, Theodosius. Oh, Daddy, squeeze me again. Oh, Papa, don't stop till I tell you when. Now, Daddy, squeeze me, kiss me some more. Just like you did before. Your Papa Cupid is standing close by. Oh, Daddy, don't let your sweet baby cry. Just pick me up on your knee. I just get so you know, oh, when you squeeze me.
Mildred Bailey, Squeeze Me. A fantastic voice. Now, everybody listen. Loving that opening there. Native American jazz singer, and during the 30s became known, of course, as the Queen of Swing. I think Helen Ward got that epithet a bit later on, didn't she? And she grew up on the Coeur d'Alene Reservation, a native Indian reservation in Idaho, where her mother was an enrolled member, and then they moved to Washington when Mildred was just 13, so that would be around about 1920, I think. Younger brothers, also musicians. Al Rinker, you might know Al Rinker. She was Mildred Rinker originally, of course, Mildred Bailey later on. Al Rinker started to perform as a singer with Bing Crosby, no less. I think Bing did slightly better. I could be wrong. And became a member of the Rhythm Boys. And Charles Rinker was a lyricist, whilst Miles Rinker, not quite up there with Miles Davis, clarinet and saxophone player, but went on to have quite a good career as a booking agent. And Bailey, yes, grew up in Idaho on the reservation. Her dad played fiddle there and called the Square Dancers, and her mum played piano every evening, which is where her music came from, taught her to play and also to sing. And the family, it is told, or it is said, often used to host Saturday night gatherings, creating music and dance in the home for local ranchers who'd come along. That must have been a good old night, it has to be said. Quite fancy that idea myself. You are listening to Sweet and Swing. Good mix today as well of sweet and swing. Sometimes it's, heavily on the swing side, and occasionally heavily on the sweet side. Today it's a good mix of both, I would say. And this one going back into the sweet category. A new one that, again, I've blew the dust off and the cobwebs, having rescued it from Music Man Towers just over the Christmas break. Songs from the Shows, Volume 9, Harry Parr Davies. How about this one? I Leave My Heart in an English Garden.
Breezes in the long grass ruffling my hair, hollyhock and bluebell scenting the air, Nothing in the world can ever be such a sweet memory. Nothing in the world was ever so fair. I leave my heart in an English garden, safe where the elm and the oak stand by. Though the years rise and roll away, still shall those watchmen stay, all in the blue of an English sky. I leave my dreams in an English garden, safe where the breezes of England blow. When the highways are dark and drear, I know there's sunshine here, right where the roses of England grow. I leave my dreams in an English garden, safe where the breezes of England blow. When the highways are dark and drear, I know there's sunshine here, right where the roses of England grow.
Told you it was firmly into the sweet side of things. Listed there as Edmund Hockridge with Frank Cordell and the music of Harry Parr Davies. I leave my heart in an English garden. He was a child prodigy and also, perhaps, if you have a good memory, was known as Gracie Field's accompanist. Harry Parr Davies, born in South Wales in 1914, beginning of the First War, brought up nearby in Neath, and as I say, something of a prodigy. By the time it said he started infant school, he was already fluent on the piano and soon leading choruses of I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles. By his early teens, he was composing and later produced many songs still being played today in his musicals, rarely off the London stage during the wartime, when he accompanied Gracie, of course, around the world entertaining the troops. He was a quiet chap, as often the case with a lot of particularly composers, can be quite introverted quite often, even though Harry was a performer as well with Gracie, but he was pretty shy generally, and consequently, when he became ill in the mid-1950s, rather than thinking, I better go and see what it is, he just took to his bed and died at the very peak of his prime from what was, in fact, a perforated ulcer, just 41 years old. Dear, dear, dear. Great loss to the popular music, and never acted in his own productions, and so his name tended to disappear. And this album I have in my hands, Songs from the Shows, number 9, Harry Parr Davies, claims to be the first ever full-length album devoted entirely to Harry Parr Davies' music. Long overdue, they say. Crafted as much enjoyment in the same mould as his Welsh compatriot Ivor Novello, but considerably less well known. Can't disagree with that. I'll keep that one on the shelf. We'll dip into that one again. Harry Hayes. 2 Harrys for the price of one. And this one is A Flat to See. A man who Don Lusher famously called the Rolls-Royce of the saxophone. And Ronnie Scott, he of the club, also said he was their governor. Harry Hayes and his band in the mid-1940s with a track called A Flat to See. That's letter C, not S-E-A. A flat going to sea. Yeah, well, you get the gist, don't you? You'll recognise this one almost straight away, although not necessarily the person who you think might normally, or chaps you might normally, would be singing it. Can you guess? A very famous song, made famous by 2 famous men. In this case, sung by 3 famous sisters.
Underneath the arches, I dream my dreams away. Underneath the arches, on cobblestones I lay. Every night you'll find me, tired out and worn, happy when the daylight comes creeping, heralding the dawn, sleeping when it's raining, and sleeping when it's fine. Trains rattling by above, pavement is my pillow, no matter where I stray. Underneath the arches, I dream my dreams away.
Underneath the arches,
Underneath the arches,
I dream my dreams away.
I dream away.
Underneath the arches,
Underneath the arches,
cobblestones I lay.
ooh,
Every night you'll find me tired out and warm,
ooh,
happy when the daylight comes creeping, carol in the dawn.
sleeping when it's raining and when it's fine. Sleeping when it's raining and sleeping when it's fine. Trains rattling by above. Pavement is my pillow, no matter where I stray. Underneath the arches, I dream my dreams away.
The Andrews Sisters, of course, with a quite sort of, it's not camp, is it? What would you call it? It's not sort of swingy. It's almost got that trad jazz feel with the banjo in the background. Dunk, 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 dunk. Yeah, a different version. And as I say, well, of course, you'd think Flanagan and Allen, wouldn't you, if you were listening to the Andrews Sisters, listening to that tune. Normally, it's the one that they made famous, of course, all those years ago. But in that case, the Andrews Sisters with Billy Tennant's orchestra. Wouldn't have recognised that there. Wouldn't have recognised that. Right, if I don't burble too much, we can squeeze a little bit more in. Clap hands. Here comes Charlie. Keep him warm as well. Clap Hands. Here Comes Charlie. And in that case, it was Charlie Webb, Chick Webb, and his orchestra in New York in 1937, 24th of March, if you want to be really precise about it. And I'm fairly certain that Clap Hands, Here Comes Charlie was also used as a sort of intro for Charlie Kuntz at one stage. And those of a certain age will also associate the tune with an advert for drinking chocolate. Clap hands, here comes Cadbury's. Clap hands, drinking chocolate. Remember that? Other brands of drinking chocolate are, of course, available, I would say. That's about it for this first sweet and swing of the new year. I do hope you've enjoyed it and will stick with us through 2025. Any ideas? Howard Kane with an E at maxradio.com. Love to hear from you. Maybe a suggestion or a request. See you next week or 2 weeks' time. Cheerio.